Hey, third graders. Today is Wednesday, April 6th, and today in math, we are talking about shapes. So I'm going to go right to the slides that you guys are working on, and we're going to talk about some of the vocabulary that you need to know when we're talking about shapes. So I'm on the slides for Wednesday. Okay. And your first math slide has an introduction to your practice problems. So when we're talking about shapes, we describe them with attributes or characteristics. So an attribute is a characteristic of someone or something. So when you're talking about an attribute of another person, you might use their eye color because that describes what part of them looks like. Like I have green eyes. That's an attribute that I have. We also use attributes when we're describing a shape. So an attribute of a shape is a characteristic that describes the shape, whether it's the square corners or the sides. We have all different characteristics to describe shapes. So let's go through some of this vocabulary so that you can learn how to describe different shapes. A polygon is a closed shape with straight sides. So all three of these shapes are polygons because there's no openings anywhere and they're all made of straight lines. These two are not polygons because this has an opening in it and this has curved lines, not straight lines. A triangle is just a polygon with three sides and three angles. You can see this triangle has 1, 2, 3 sides, and the angle is where two lines meet. So here's an angle, this corner right here, an angle right here, and an angle right here. So the number of sides will also tell you how many angles it has. Triangle has 3 sides, it has 3 angles. A quadrilateral, which is what we're talking about today, is a polygon or a shape with 4 sides. And since it has 4 sides, it has 4 angles. So all of these shapes are examples of quadrilaterals because all of them have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. And you'll notice that a lot of these shapes look familiar to you. Like right here, I can see a square. One type of quadrilateral is a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral, so it has 4 sides with one pair of sides that never cross. All right? So when we're looking at a trapezoid, you can see that this very top side and this very bottom side, if we were to extend those lines out, and extend this line out, they would never end up crossing each other. So you can see that these two lines are directly across from each other, but they're not slanted at all, so they won't ever cross each other. That's a trapezoid. A rectangle, you've seen that before, is a quadrilateral with opposite sides that are equal and 4 square corners. So we know a rectangle because the opposite sides are the same length, like the top side and the bottom side, those are both the same length across. And this side and this side are the same length. And you can also tell that it has 4 square corners. Square corners are just corners that you might see in a square, like a perfect square corner. You can see right here, boom, boom. Like I could fit a corner of a piece of paper right in there. It's a perfect square corner. That's a rectangle. Remember, opposite sides are equal. A square, a quadrilateral with all sides the same length. We know squares have all equal sides. They have 2 pairs of sides that will never cross. So like this line and this line, if we extended them, they would never cross. And this line and this line would never cross. And it has 4 square corners, which are also called right angles. You can see this angle right here, the perfect square corner. Like you could fit the corner of a piece of paper right in there. All right. A rhombus is a quadrilateral with all sides the same length All right, so it's similar to a square because it has all sides that are the same length and two pairs of sides that will never cross. So the opposite sides, like a square, also will never cross. But the thing that's different about a rhombus is that they don't have square corners. You can see the angles here are more slanted. So you can kind of think of a rhombus as like a slanted square. All right, and the last one is a parallelogram. So a parallelogram is similar to a rectangle. It has opposite sides that are the same length, but it doesn't have those square corners. You can see those angles there are slanted. So a parallelogram is kind of like a slanted rectangle. So use this vocabulary sheet on this slide to help you answer your questions today. And we're going to go through the first few together. So, solve and share. Look at the shapes in each group below. Make a list of the attributes that the shapes in each group have in common. Consider the length of the sides, the corners, and if opposite sides of the shape will ever meet each other. So, the first group we have are rhombuses. All right, well, let's go back to my vocabulary about a rhombus. It's a quadrilateral with all sides the same length, okay? Two pairs of sides that will never cross. So for a rhombus, I wrote that it has four sides. There are no square angles. You can see all those corners, all those angles and corners are kind of slanted. All sides are the same length. And I'm going to add in one more from that vocabulary. It said two pairs of sides that will never cross. So I'm going to add that in there. Two pairs of sides that will never cross. Okay? So now it's going to be your turn. You need to describe some attributes or some ways that you would describe these squares. And don't forget, you have the vocabulary on the slide before to help you. And then you have a question here. When does a square become a rhombus? So when a square becomes a rhombus. So you want to think about, well, what's the difference between a square and a rhombus? I know they both have four sides, and I know that all their sides are equal, and they both have two pairs of sides that will never cross. So the big thing that's different between a rhombus and a square is those square corners. So think about, when would a square like this turn into a rhombus? What would have to change about that square? Think about what I said, because I gave you a hint if you need to rewind. After you finish this slide, you one more. It says, move the shapes below into the correct area of your Venn diagram. So on this side of your Venn diagram, you're going to put the shapes that have all opposite sides are equal in length. All right? And over here, you would put no square corners. And if anything is both, you would put it right in here. So that would be a shape that has all opposite sides are equal and they have no square corners. So I'll give you a hint of something that would go in the middle. This rhombus right here doesn't have any square corners. You can see the angles are slanted. All right. And the opposite sides are equal in length. It said that in the vocabulary for a rhombus. All sides are the same length. So that means the opposite sides are the same length. So that would go in the middle. I'm going to move that back. So remember, you have that vocabulary slide that can really, really help you to finish these math practice problems. And then when you're done with the practice problems, don't forget to work on your memory jogger.